1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Well, hello there and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Lynn Cullen Live. It's July 8th. My sister is joining us from St. Louis, where late last evening the Pirates threw one away. Dang it! Hi, Suze.
Hi, really? I was not paying a bit of attention.
It was just a great game. It was 0-0 into the ninth. It was a great game, and we left the bases loaded, I think, in the eighth. Anyway, you guys won.
Well, good for our reliever.
You guys won in the ninth. I was thinking it was going to go into a gazillion extra innings, and I turned it off. I said, you'll find out in the morning, and that way, if they won, you'll be happy. If they lost, you won't have suffered through the agony. So that's what. So you're back home.
I am.
That's good. That's good. And we're all here in our little places, too. I have not been sleeping, so I am like, and I have to admit, today it's finally hit me to the point where I don't even feel like I can quite access my brain. I'm like in a daze. I don't sleep anymore at all. At all. Horrific. So, and it's because of the damn shoulder.
Right, because you're in pain all night.
Right. It's so weird. I took, get this, 2 Benadryl last night in the 8th inning. 2 Benadryl in the 8th inning, thinking that this will knock me out. It didn't even make me drowsy.
Well, perhaps you need a sleep aid.
Well, Benadryl is a sleep aid.
Yeah, I know, but a different one. Anyway, this could not possibly be interesting.
You're right. Well, that's right.
we could talk about this later.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. As I said, my head's not working. Okay. I did manage to, read the papers and all that kind of stuff, though.
Well, you're ahead of me.
Oh, really?
I was out cleaning up after the storm that you're going to have later.
Oh. Well, I don't know. They keep forecasting these storms, and they keep just skirting right to the north of Pittsburgh. I mean, I think a lot of people in the Pittsburgh area have been getting, slammed, but the city, nothing. So maybe. Anyway, yeah, they look pretty nasty on radar, but we haven't gotten any. Okay, this is not interesting either. Okay, so, speaking of baseball.
Yes.
There was a lawsuit that was, what do you do with the lawsuit? You file it, no?
Yes.
Yes? A guy has filed a lawsuit against Major League Baseball, against ESPN, against just about anybody he can think of, I guess, for mental anguish, defamation of character. Jess, you know what this is? You've seen it?
I saw that yesterday.
All right, so...
What, did they show him doing something stupid at a ball game?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't doing anything stupid. He was just, it was a Yankee Red Sox game at Yankee Stadium. Excuse me. And fourth inning, the roving cameras noticed that this guy, namely him, was fast asleep. I mean, out cold. His head lolling off to the right, his mouth hanging open, probably drool coming out of the corner. He's out cold. And so the camera alights on him, and the two guys that are broadcasting the show, sort of laugh, and one of them says, "Man, this guy's oblivious." And, they just said a few things. I don't think they said anything particularly mean. They did suggest that we've got to see how long this guy's out for, so I think they kept checking back on him, and I think he was pretty much out most of the game. So after this airs, this gets onto the internet and goes viral. And he says he has been humiliated and yada. And his reputation has been damaged. His mother said he wouldn't even go to work for over a week because people are making fun of him. Blah, blah, blah. What do you think? I mean, what do you think in terms of when you're in a... that's a public space, is it not? Even though it's privately owned?
When you're in a public space, especially in a baseball, in a sports stadium, I would, if I were, defending the against this, I would say, you have no expectation of privacy. The cameras are going around that stadium, putting people up on the jumbotron. That television stations are televising it and will pick up on that stuff. Once you buy that ticket, you have tacitly, if not expressly, given permission for them to use your image.
Well,
and that's just the way it goes. And I'm not so sure it might not be written on the back of a ticket someplace.
That's what Jess just said. She was saying, I think it's in fine print on the back of the ticket.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he doesn't have a leg to stand on.
No.
Well, what kind of idiot lawyer is taking his money?
I don't know. Someone that thinks that they have a chance that they'll get paid to go away, even if there are no merits.
It says the complaint was written in highly idiosyncratic and often ungrammatical English by Valentine Okwara, a lawyer from Jamaica, Queens, who was admitted to the bar in 2013 and has a degree from the University of Buckingham in England. That just seems like an odd thing to put in the story. Mm-hmm. So they're saying he's a young lawyer who doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
I think. Well, so anyway, Andrew Rector is the guy's name, and of course, by suing, his picture...
He magnifies his own problems. Now it's all over the place all again. It's just, it's such a narcissistic injury that it doesn't occur to him that absolutely no one cared but him.
That's true. Although he was teased by people. And apparently...
Well, he was teased because he was making himself such a miserable target.
And what also happened is, I guess, so on the internet and on the Major League Baseball's website or something, people started, calling him names because he's overweight, fat, blah, blah, blah. So, and, of course, he reads all that and whatever. And the New York Times reports that this is a case of life imitating art, since there's a Seinfeld episode in which George goes to the U.S. Open, and his reputation is essentially destroyed, and his girlfriend ends up breaking up with him after he's shown on television gluttonously, it says, digging into an ice cream sundae. I'm sure lots of people get. I remember last year, some guy, a foul ball. That's a hard thing for me to say, foul ball.
Foul ball. Yes, it is.
Foul ball. Your mouth has to move. Yeah, you try it, Jess. She's looking at me like that's stupid.
Foul ball.
So do it again.
Foul ball.
Foul ball. Foul ball. It's hard.
No.
Hey, Susan, everybody's saying congratulations to you. You put that picture up of your beautiful baby.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. He is a beauty.
I asked for permission.
to show him off a little bit, huh? Well, yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so people are. Lori and Laura have both signed in to say that. So.
How nice. Thank you.
What else? I'll stay with the legal stuff for a while. Are you aware of that Hillary Clinton is taking heat for, it's never too soon, right? For something she did back in 1975.
Oh, right. She defended somebody.
She defended a rapist.
Right.
And at the time, she was 27 years old, obviously, fresh out of law school. And she was working at the University of Arkansas's legal aid clinic. And right. as obviously being part of that, she was appointed by the court.
Right. I was going to say, my guess is this was pro bono work. I haven't been following it that closely, but because that's not the kind of lawyer she was. But yes. Yes.
So she was appointed by the judge to represent this guy who had allegedly raped a 12-year-old. I don't know if sexually assaulted a 12-year-old girl. She says, I was asked to be relieved, but I was not, and I had a professional duty to represent my client to the best of my ability, which I did. That is correct, right?
Right, absolutely.
I mean, that's what a lawyer has to do.
System depends on it.
That is correct. So here's what the Republicans are trying to make out of this. They're trying to say that, you know, all that her feigned concern about women and girls and rape victims, that it's obvious that she would not, and you know, I suppose they'll make hay with this to a certain extent. She represented.
It's pretty hard.
She represented this guy pretty damn well.
It's pretty hard. The court appoints you to do something. It won't allow you not to do it, and believe me, that's exactly what happens. It's you know, it was always one of my fears in practicing law that they'd hand me a case that I know nothing about, and some poor schmo, or even worse, some disgusting, schmo was going to get me as their appointed lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, it's scary. So no, I mean, that happens, and as usual, only the most abysmally ignorant will buy into it, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. And the good news is they weren't voting for her anyway.
Correct.
The people that it reaches are the people that, as usual, they only talk to themselves.
The old echo chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the victim, though, the 12-year-old victim, who is now 52, is quoted in the Daily Beast. Man, nothing is let to lie anymore. I mean, we all can have things dredged up for some reason from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and people making accusations or whatever. But anyway, so this kid, who obviously was aggrieved, but now she's 52, she said, Hillary Clinton took me through hell. And she said that her efforts to advance women's rights is hypocritical. No, I don't think so. I think Clinton also got in trouble because there's an audio recording of her from the 1980s when she's talking about this case to somebody, and she said, I had him take a polygraph, which he passed, which forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs, she says, and then sort of laughs. So she obviously thought he was guilty.
Right.
Right.
Doesn't matter. And in law school, you're taught, don't ask.
Yeah, you don't want to know too much. Well, how can you come on, defense attorneys must
They get a pretty good idea, but if what they're trying to do is defend the client to the best of their ethical duty. But one of the ways to keep it clean, is not to ask. You say, "Tell me what happened," and I mean, I don't know. I didn't do that kind of law, and I didn't do that kind of a law for a reason. Because I truly believe that every single human being deserves an attorney that will fight with everything they've got to represent them well. That's the job.
Well, we won't be surprised to hear that Hillary Clinton at 27 represented him well, because she does everything pretty well.
Because that's who she is.
And he faced up to 30 years in prison, and she plea bargained him to a year in county jail and 4 years of probation. Now that's... So he never had a trial, right? If there was a plea bargain, he agreed to...
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway.
And so if he never had it, I don't, the most that Hillary could have done to this little girl was if she was allowed to
cross-examine her. You're right. I'm trying to figure that. So I was imagining her badgering.
And in that case, she's in a room, and she's got people with her, and she's got an attorney that questions Hillary every step of the way.
Right.
And I don't even know, that that's how that works in criminal court.
I don't know.
So I don't,
Okay, here's another little item I found, and to me, this helped explain a bit my confusion over this, all of a sudden, this surge, you'll pardon the expression, I'll never feel the same way about that word again. Surge. The surge of these young immigrants, children, over our southern border.
Isn't it? It's just sort of...
Like, where did that come from all of a sudden? That, what the hell? Well, Suze, there's this interesting story today saying that some people... Well, one of the problems with it is...
I think they believe that if their kids got here through no fault of their own, but were placed here by their children, by their parents, they will have a path to citizenship.
Well, it's more specific than that. Turns out one of the last measures that George W. Bush signed before leaving office. I mean, literally in the final days of his presidency, when the transition to the Obama presidency was taking place. President George W. Bush signed a bill that I think was almost unanimously passed, bipartisan support, called the William Wilberforce Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2008. And what that bill did was it was an attempt to try to protect children who were being trafficked. And this was a big thing for a lot of evangelical groups to stop the sexual trafficking of children. And the bill gave all kinds of new protections to any child, get this, entering the United States alone, and get this, who was not from Mexico or Canada.
Right.
So these kids, we keep hearing, they're not from Mexico.
No.
They're from Honduras. They're from Guatemala. And these are not Mexican kids. So the kids that are coming here, somehow they know that there is a law that means they cannot be turned right around and sent back, because this law requires that these children, unaccompanied children who aren't from Canada or Mexico, be given an opportunity to have an immigration hearing, to consult with an attorney, and to have an advocate. They also are to be turned over to the care of the Department of Health and Human Services, and they have then tried to find the least restrictive setting in which to keep the child, including exploring the reuniting of any child with family members. That's what they've been doing with these kids, because they're following this law that had nothing whatsoever to do with border security. It had to do with the sexual trafficking of young children. And the law, as I said, was bipartisan support, almost unanimous, signed by George W. Bush, and it is a classic case of unintended consequences.
That's right.
So,
but add to that so these kids are also escaping clearly their own kind
of horror,
desperately horrifying situations,
right.
where their parents wouldn't throw them over the border.
Mm-mm. No, they're coming out of towns in which gangs run.
That terrible gang warfare.
Right. And young people, especially young boys, are caught up in it, and parents are so desperate to save their children from this that, they're even willing to... Jeez, I can't imagine that kind of desperation. But the fact is, the number, as far as anyone knows, is close to 52,000 children without any adult have, in fact, been caught at our border and have made their way from
They haven't
Guatemala.
been caught. They walk in and announce themselves. They give themselves up.
Yeah.
They go looking for a border guard.
Right. Here I am. And the poor dears are all going to be sent back. They might even get to stay here for a year or two as all this process occurs, and then they'll be sent back, right? How
Probably.
horrendous! It's just horrific.
But it's a huge humanitarian crisis for Texas. It is.
But even to me, more horrific is the reaction of those god-awful white people in like Murrieta, California or something, screaming at these bus loads of children.
Right. Oh, right. Like they want to call, a bug exterminator.
Right. And acting like it's some kind of a that their security is at risk because these children are running for their very lives. Some people, and they're absolutely, they're interviewed on the news every night. They have I don't know. They don't see themselves. The ugliness that they represent. Now, everybody seems to be saying, the president, Hillary Clinton, who might be president, all these people, that we can't let this happen. They can't all stay. You can't do it. We can't do this. But I don't know. What's a person who has empathy supposed to do in this damn world? Get drunk. think I just answered my own question. I think get drunk. PJ sent me still photos of George Costanza eating his sundae at the U.S. Open, and I would have broken up with him too. Not that I ever would have been going with him in the first place, but definitely would have. Okay, we got to take a break. Susan and I point out that we always say a short break. You've never heard anybody say anything but, right? And sometimes mine are though. Some, and we'll be back after the short break, and then it goes on for 3.5 minutes.
Right.
But this one won't. I promise.
Okay. I'm not going anywhere.
Good.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right, I've gone through all the tracks. Just move through the beats. Do your thing.
All right, everyone, let's hear it for West High's own Brooke Turner, a.k.a. DJ Hook.
Scratching at my first school dance takes confidence. So getting into college, I've got what it takes. So do you.
Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org. Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win 4 Kennywood tickets and 4 Sandcastle tickets. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
See, that was short. Here we are back again. The president uncovered, presented an initiative yesterday, blah, 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 that I don't see that it has any teeth in it or really is going to amount to much, in which school districts or states have to show that they are improving the quality of teachers in high poverty areas. And I heard a soundbite from the president who said something like, and this is so clearly true, he said, it's just, he didn't say this, I'm paraphrasing. He said it's nuts that our best teachers are invariably found in our best schools, teaching the best children who already have all these resources available to them. And the most inexperienced teachers with very little support are forever ending up in these poorer districts, yes. And he said, this is nuts. I mean, obviously every teacher should be a qualified teacher, but if any demographic group needs the best teachers, it's these impoverished schools where maybe a teacher could make a difference. And I don't know how would you even...
You can't, well, that's what I was going to ask you.
How do you do that?
Well, so how are you going to do that? If you don't have the ability to offer to pay these people what it takes to do an extra difficult job and to give them the support that they would need in order to do the job, there is no way that most of these master teachers are going to put themselves into that situation.
Into that environment.
No one. This is a country where people get to decide where they work. Now there are some, if you have a greater, a school district that encompasses all sorts of different kinds of schools, then perhaps the Board of Education in that situation has more of an ability to place its best teachers in its most challenging situations.
Right.
But, then they just might not attract those teachers.
Yeah. That's what I think. I mean, what this initiative is, it's just a bunch of goddamn paperwork, excuse me. States will now have to analyze data, submit plans to ensure students are taught by effective educators.
Yeah, listen.
Blah, blah,
every
blah.
teacher. We know this. We know that the single most important factor in any education is the person at the front of the classroom. That you can spend money on every single bell, whistle, facility, and if that person standing in front of the group of kids isn't good at what they do, all that other money is wasted. So any district that isn't putting all of its resources into its personnel is short-sighted. That's number one. Number two, if you aren't in these more difficult situations going to support that teacher and understand that it takes more money because you're filling in the cracks of the infrastructure, of the community infrastructure through that public school, that it takes no more money, even putting a master teacher in front of a classroom won't matter.
Yeah.
This isn't easy, and if you want to fix it, you got to pay attention, you have to fill in the cracks, and you have to pay for it.
Well, of course, they don't have the money to do this. They also have no enforcement ability. So, I mean, they said, so if the states give you this information, so what? And then what do you do if it's just, I hate this when government does this kind of thing. I mean, obviously,
the federal government has never been good at education.
No.
It is forever mandating that things happen. It is never giving, the money to put the mandates into place. It's frequently further taxing. This is one of those cases where I really do think as local as you can keep the control, the better it is. It will naturally reflect the community that it's in, whether for good or for ill. But in a state, at least you can try and figure out ways to deal with it if you are of good heart, And federal government has not been a friend to public education, and that's a problem.
But Susan, but with local control, then you get these whole huge patches, big patches of areas of the country in which children will not be taught basic science. I mean...
Well, that's how it is. Yes, but that's how it is now. I mean, that isn't anything different. Having the feds involved has not stopped any of these state boards of education from having the control. All we can do is hope that in the end, people people who are not afraid of facts will come to their senses. If I saw anything good coming out of, an overweening thing other than saying this has to exist, I don't see any way to more effectively manage it than locally. Not to say that the way we do it now is correct.
It's wrong. I mean, the funding sources are wrong.
The funding's just totally wrong.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So many of our systems are friggin' crazy. And here, look at here's a fact. You said something about facts. People aren't afraid of facts. Here's a fact that scares me. More than 2/3 of Americans aged 17 to 24 would fail to qualify for military service because they are either too fat, too unhealthy, too uneducated, too addicted to drugs, or have mental disorders, or a felony conviction. More than 2/3.
We are throwing our children away.
What the hell? It's not like the military sets the bar all that high. How do they know?
Well, right now, the military is being selective because they are winding down.
They're winding down, but whenever right when they're
10 years ago, they weren't being selective at all.
Well, no, and they were ratcheting things up. Like, that's how this Bergdahl guy, who we haven't heard anything from,
Right.
Got snatched up. He shouldn't have been in. He already had...
the Coast Guard wouldn't take him.
Well, the Coast Guard took him and then
sent him home.
Sent him home. And he had issues. But we needed cannon fodder. More than 2/3? 17 to 24? Unbelievable. Oh, well. All this is depressing. Let's not talk about it. Okay?
No, I was going to suggest we could start filing some lawsuits against those people called corporations and the people called corporations who advertise to these people and convince them that eating 10 times the normal daily requirement is the appropriate dose.
Yeah. Or plying them with things that will ultimately kill them. I don't know. God, what a world. You hadn't happened to look at the Wall Street Journal today, did you, Susan?
No, I did not. I was outside early in the morning picking up large branches and sticks out of my backyard, wondering, and off my, very close to my house, and wondering why I didn't even hear it.
Well, unlike me, you must have been sleeping soundly. Good for you. So it turns out today is the 125th anniversary of the Wall Street Journal. First published July 8th, 1889, Suze. And here's what that looked like. I mean, without these blue dots all over it. There it was. It has the exact same print. Right? Doesn't it? They haven't changed that at all.
I'm looking at it. I have it right now.
Okay. It has that's amazing. But notice something. They point out something which I have never noticed. The Wall Street Journal, and here's the current. Oh, no, it's not the same print. When Murdoch took it, I think he changed it. Is that the same print? This is the current one. But if you'll notice, it says the Wall Street Journal, but there's a period after the journal. There's a period. There's a little dot right after the L, which makes no sense. And they say in this thing, I've never noticed it before, that the punctuation, putting a period, was common in 1889 to connote formality. And so in 1889, when they made their first edition of the Wall Street Journal, period, they were doing what you did then to show that this was of some import. And apparently the journal has, I'm sure it's come up for discussion in the 125 years since, every time they might do a redo of the face of the paper. And they have decided they will stick with the period for old time's sake. And but what's interesting, I've never noticed it because it's odd. You don't see that in any other paper, I don't think.
Nope, and I've never noticed it.
Me either. But now, dang it, that's all I see. I look and all I see is a period. So anyway, the first issue doesn't look very interesting to me. I did. We have a caller. Hello. Hi, caller. Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Go ahead.
How you doing?
Fine.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
You're always interrupting me.
I know. I am a pain in the ass, I know.
I know, and you got to turn down your audio because I'm hearing...
Okay, I'll turn my audio down. No, I just wanted to say, did you happen to read or see on television when the Founding Fathers did the Declaration of Independence? They either were high on hemp or half kicked in the ass by alcohol, because alcohol back there, they couldn't drink water because it was not purified.
Yeah.
So I could see, and it was made out of hemp, too, so I figured you'd appreciate all that.
Thank you, I do. Thank you very much. Yeah, it is true.
We'll
thank you. They were drinking a lot. That is true. Because it's right.
Yeah, and they were, and not beer, as it turns out, because that was too expensive.
Right.
And it took too long. They didn't have the crops yet.
Right. Thank you, Clarence. Clarence sent me a longish article from The Atlantic about Finland's education there, which is, of course, to die for. They don't have
But, look, it's very easy to do those things
in a small country.
In a country that is the size of one of our states.
And
so
that
what
is
you've got
homogeneous.
is a really well-run, education system for a basically homogeneous population.
Right.
That doesn't face most of the issues that we're facing.
Well, increasingly these European countries with their great education system are starting to face these issues.
Yeah, and they're having a reaction to it too, because they're getting immigrant populations.
Right. So they're becoming neo-fascists. That's their reaction.
Yes, and then they are.
Jeez. Okay, well, gotta get another short break in, and when we come back, I wanna have a little fun with what the Wall Street Journal did do today. It is fun, and they mostly have it online because what they did is they took that day, July 8th, 1889, and they looked at their front page, what they had done, and then they decided to do it like they would cover the same thing today. So they did do that. This is included in the paper today, along with an awful lot of fun stuff to read. But I got to tell you, the summer of 1889, stuff was happening. And we'll get back to that after this short break.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win 4 Kennywood tickets and 4 Sandcastle tickets. The CP Haps app, brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Well, the Urban Gardener. I almost made it there yesterday, but then something interfered and I didn't. I was close. I was on the north end of things, and I thought, Urban Gardener, but I had too many things to do, and I said, no, you can't. Urban Gardener, see it if you can, please. I know at this time in the summer, our gardens are pretty much, they're set, probably. But it's also this time when sometimes plants are failing or pots that you put together that look nice don't look so good anymore, and you might be culling things, and then you need a few little somethings here and there to stick in, right? Urban Gardener on Brighton Road, 1901, right there on the north side. And these women who own this place, they specialize in, this is a shocker, urban gardens. Yeah. Because what's an urban garden? Probably a little smaller than a suburban garden. Maybe even a lot shadier. And they have all the stuff to make a glorious urban garden. And they have the smarts to be able to help you do it. They'll come out to your house and consult if you want. And help you make your garden as beautiful as it can possibly be. The Urban Gardener, the garden spot on the city's north side, 1901 Brighton Road. Check out their website, okay? Do that, because the website is a fount of really, really interesting information for people who like to get their hands dirty, okay? And that site is urbangardenerpgh.com. And if you buy something, you mention my name. That would be Lynn Cullen. And you'll get a discount. Mm-hmm.
Oh!
You are round MVP.
Yeah, man. Yo, Drew, I finally got round MVP. Round MVP.
No way. That was some ownage.
Finally earning round MVP takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
Visit knowhowtogo.org to learn what you should be doing right now to prepare for college. Start taking the steps at knowhowtogo.org. Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
All right, Roger writes, speaking of newspapers, what's happening to the Post-Gazette? It's become the size of the Weekly Reader we used to get in elementary school. I loved my Weekly Reader. The difference is the Weekly Reader was proofread. Spelling and grammar mistakes galore in the PG, paragraphs repeated in the same article. Is there no money to pay for basic professionalism at the Post-Gazette? You know, Roger, I've seen this happening over the years, and it's not just the PG. I don't think anyone proofreads anything anymore.
No. They don't have human proofreaders anymore. It's all spell check.
Right.
And if spell check approves it or changes it,
I'm reading this wonderful book. We'll have the author on it as soon as I finish it up, called The Bend of the World. And this is a major publisher. And I came upon a total typo in it the other day. Those of us who remember the standards that used to exist, are pretty appalled. And I did mention something about the PG yesterday. I don't recognize most of the bylines anymore. These are probably young people who made the mistake of wanting to be newspaper reporters.
Right.
And they're getting a shot at it. But I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Most of the real, some of the good ones are still hanging in there, but a lot of them have gone. They've been bought out, or they jumped into something else. They don't, and they simply don't have the revenue. They don't have the revenue to do things the way they used to, and then they aren't what they used to be, and fewer people subscribe, and fewer people buy ads, and then it makes it all worse, and it's a spiral. That's right.
What's happening.
That's what's happening. It's an old media. And so back to that, and it's a terrible, terrible loss. And the implications and repercussions of it are huge, because there were certain standards that were set, and they were set pretty damn high. And I'm sure that, on the internet, there's no real standard. So I read it on the internet. Doesn't mean anything. But it used to mean something if you say I read it in, a reputable newspaper.
Well, and in fact, these our venerable publications need to successfully, make the transition to being an online service, which some of them are taking longer to do than others.
But they can't make money.
To me how bad our hometown newspaper's website is, because that's clearly
where they have to go. Right.
Right.
Well, the problem there, though, is, Susan, and I know this very well, I've seen it happen, is they can't monetize it as well on the internet. No one wants to pay for anything anymore. I don't know how anything is going to work. And I think the internet's going to end up being a very sort of annoying place to get news. That's what I think.
Well, maybe.
I want my papers. So anyway, what I was saying is, the Wall Street Journal had a little fun, and since their paper is 125 years old today, they took the first paper and looked at what was the news that day, and then they They put it together like they would have if the paper had been done today. I'll give you a little sense of what was happening in July of 1889. This is their column that they always do down the side, telling you the stories that are inside and giving you a quick little synopsis. First of all, who was president then? I wouldn't have a clue. President Harrison, it said, reiterated his opposition to bimetallism. What the hell's that?
I have no idea.
I'm about to explain. Bimetallism, and said the U.S. will adhere solely to the gold standard, disappointing advocates of silver. Okay. The Dow Jones average closed on Saturday. At, get this, pick a number.
I don't know.
87.71. 87. Wow, it's come up a bit since then. Andrew Carnegie called for an estate tax of at least 50% on millionaires, describing it as the wisest of all forms of taxation. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! What the hell? Do you know how many plutocrats reading this today all over the US of A, like, blew their coffee all over the room when they came on that one?
Well, and what he was saying, I still have plenty. Look.
Oh, yeah, I got more than enough. He was saying if you're a millionaire, 50% should be the tax rate. You see how fucked up we've gotten? Excuse me, guys. Seriously. Let's see. Settlers are still streaming into the Oklahoma Territory nearly 3 months after the land rush began. Socialists from 20 countries will convene next week in Paris for the Second International to debate how to combat capitalism. Oh, yeah. The death toll from the May 31st flood in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, will likely exceed 2,000, authorities say. Dam owners, you can read that one of two ways, Andrew Carnegie again, and Henry Clay Frick and Andrew Mellon have not been charged. Wow. So, also, there was a strike at the Homestead Steelworks. That made the front page. That also brings Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie made the front page in 3 different stories. Mm-hmm. He was
an important guy.
Jeez. It says there was a huge outbreak of labor unrest in Duluth, Minnesota, where the police killed or mortally wounded 4 of the strikers. And also, the strikers were striking because they'd been making $2 a day. And the bosses were wanting to drop that to $1.50 a day.
Well,
I would strike too.
And
they say that the steel workers in Homestead were striking because Carnegie had demanded a 25% wage cut and individual contracts with each worker. Consequently, he didn't want the union around. Well, we know where that ended up, and that got plenty bloody real soon. They also do more reporting of the Johnstown disaster, which had happened just 2.5 months earlier. And, wow. And it is amazing, Susan. The dam that broke was put there by Carnegie and Mellon and all these rich Pittsburgh people who wanted a place to get away from the noxious air that they created.
Right, that they had created. They wanted, so they made themselves a little lake, did they?
A huge lake, and up in the mountains, and they made themselves their own train tracks to take them from Pittsburgh in total ostentatious comfort to their place, the South Fork Club, it was called. And when that dam broke, it, unleashed this horrific torrent, which literally, the accounts of this flood are so actually engrossing and horrific. If you go to Johnstown, which is close, and you go to their big old cemetery there, I don't know that there's another cemetery in the country that you would see this. Acre after acre and tombstone after tombstone bearing the same date. Everybody died on that same date. Whole families. That cemetery is a real... I remember wandering around in there as a television reporter and just being overwhelmed by the horror of that moment. And that all of these rich guys were not one of them held liable. They were not held liable. There were no criminal trials, nothing. None of them ever paid a cent. I think maybe they had some kind of maybe they passed the plate and got a little money together and, threw it at some of the survivors, but nothing. Unbelievable. Also, still on this front page of the Wall Street Journal, there's a cute story on Mark Twain, who they pointed out was one of the richest people in the country at the time, but I know that story didn't end well.
No.
He frittered it away. He invested in stupid things. But their story talks about the fact that he could earn up to $25,000 a month in lecture fees and royalties from his book. That is huge. In 1889, $25,000, and he had, he built himself a luxurious mansion. He wanted to be totally stinking rich, is what they say here. And it turns out, and I didn't know this, he was always trying to market inventions that he came up with. So he would invent things like, Susan, would you buy a pair of grape scissors?
Yes, actually.
What? Why would you
and your mother has a pair, too.
They exist?
Yes.
What do you need a grape scissors for? A knife can cut a grape.
I swear.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just telling you they exist.
Stupid.
And there's a pair in our mother's silverware drawer or flatware drawer in the kitchen.
And is it ever employed?
Yeah, I've used it. And I've used it to snip grapes.
To snip grapes from what?
It's from the main stem.
Oh, from the main stem. I was imagining cutting grapes or in half or something. Oh, why can't any old... Why would it have to be a grape scissors? A scissors.
But I'm just telling you, they exist.
Okay, it does, because right here, he invented a grape scissors. Who knows? Might be he might hold the patent on that. He did hold some patents. He also invented a bed clamp to keep children from kicking off their blankets. I need one of those. And he invented a self-pasting scrapbook. Oh, jeez. It's amazing. That
could get sticky.
Yeah, that could get sticky. And a chalk-based printing process. So, that guy had a hungry mind. He was investing in board games and all kinds of... He financed a syndicate that was going to construct a railway network in China and a railroad line that would connect Constantinople with the Persian Gulf. He lost all his money. So the headline here is Mark Twain, America's greatest humorist, also its worst businessman. Yes, indeedy. So, and here's another little item just to bring us back. The Canadian movement to be annexed to the United States is gaining some adherents even after a defeat in Parliament. Do you know that they ever tried to do that?
No.
Me either. Okay. Well, I think I'm... German engineers Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach will debut their steel-wheeled wagon, a gasoline-powered horseless vehicle, at the Paris Exposition. And meanwhile, at the Paris Exposition, the base of the Eiffel Tower is up and showcasing the nation's industrial prowess. So that's just some of what was happening 125 years ago. Okay? And I think if you go online, that's where they really have this whole edition. They just have one page.
Yeah, because what they in the paper edition, it's just a picture, and none of that stuff's on it.
Right, and then they say they jump at the. I mean, you want to keep reading some of these, believe me, but it's not continued on a paper. It's continued at WSJ.com/125. Okay, so I think if you go there, I don't know if you have to. Maybe you can't without. See, the Wall Street Journal, I think, has already figured out how to monetize its online edition, haven't they? I don't think.
Yeah, you can only access a certain number of articles, and then you have to pay.
Then you have to pay. Okay, and the price of this baby, 2 cents. 2 cents. The price of the edition today, $2. So there you have it, for whatever that's worth. But that's anyone who likes to dig into the past. Today's Wall Street Journal is a lot of fun. Okay? I don't usually think of the Wall Street Journal as a lot of fun.
But to think, if they were only paying workers, if they only wanted to pay workers $1 a day, then 2 cents a day was a lot of money.
Yeah. So Carnegie's an interesting character, huh? On the one hand, he's screwing his workers.
On the one hand, take half my taxes. On the other hand, I don't want to pay my workers.
On the one hand, let me build a bunch of free libraries for all you guys. On the other hand, I want you working 7 days a week, and I'll kill you if you don't. Jeez. Interesting. Anyway, I think we're done.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I hope you sleep tonight, dear sister.
Oh, God.
Perhaps we should chat later this afternoon.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Suze. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. And tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day. I think that's Shakespeare. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.